In this video, we are going to be looking at why price is on vertical axis. Before we proceed, let's quickly explain how function is graph. When you have something like this, you have a quantity demanded is a function of price. It means that price determines quantity demanded, and as such, price, which is the independent variable, will be measured on horizontal axis, and that dependent variable, which is quantity demanded, will be measured on vertical axis. Now, if you have it like this, that price is a function of quantity demanded, it means that quantity demanded determines price. Now it's other way around to this, so it means that quantity demanded determines price. So in that case, now quantity demanded will be on a horizontal axis and price will be on a vertical axis. But when you check out what we are taught in our school and what we have in our textbook, you are going to see that the case is reversed. We are taught that price determines quantity demanded, and the function should be written this way. The function should be written this way. Price determines quantity demanded, and the plot should also go this way. But in our textbook, even in our class, we have our price to be on vertical axis, and quantity demanded is horizontal axis, which is different from the function defined, because the function says that price determines quantity demanded. You say the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and we are using this graph, which is different from what we are saying. That is why many a time economists are asked that why are they having different way of plotting their function. Then we say sometimes that is how economists do their thing, which is not correct. So for us to understand this very well, let's quickly look at this graph. Who popularized this graph? This graph is popularized, that is, this one is popularized by Marshall. So we call it Marshallian demand curve. Although Marshall was not the only person that graphed this way. In fact, people like Gossin and Given had plotted this way before the arrival of Marshall. So in that case, but Marshall popularized this idea. He popularized this graph. Now, why are we now having a difference? Can we conclude that Marshall was the one that made a mistake in plotting the graph, and that is why we are using it today, and nobody is ready to question that particular graph? No. Before we conclude, let's quickly look at the motive behind the derivative of demand curve of Marshall. What was the motive of Marshall for defining demand curve, and how did he define it? So let's quickly look at Marshall. Marshall derived his demand curve from marginal utility. In his book called The Principle of Economics, Marshall believed that the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase of his stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in his stock he already has. So he's talking about a marginal utility. What happens to marginal utility? Marshall sees that marginal utility falls as more additional units of the commodity is consumed, and he also see that as more additional units is consumed, the value getting from that commodity, the additional value getting from that commodity decreases, and as such the price to be paid for that value will also be decreased. That is why he say that the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase of his stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in his stock he already has. Let's quickly look at the graph here now. This is the marginal utility graph, and this is the demand, graph. Now, if you look at this now at the initial stage, we are starting from quantity, because uh, 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 Marshall sees that quantity demanded determines, the quantity demanded consumed determine the value to be paid for that commodity. That is why we are starting from quantity now, and this is how it is explained. It is presented in the principle of economics. Even the supply is also presented this way. Quantity supply determines price, while quantity demanded determines price. Now in this case, now when we look at this very well, we can easily see that at the first stage, when quantity demanded is consumed, then we have marginal utility to be what? To be five utils. When one unit is consumed, marginal utility is 5. And when we consume the second one, you can see that marginal utility falls. So marginal utility falls. Even when we consume the third one, marginal utility falls to 3. So Marshall is saying that as the additional consumption is falling, the value, that is the value of the additional consumption, is falling, then the price to be paid must also fall. That is why when we are consuming first unit, we pay $5, but immediately we are consuming the second unit, which is 2 units here, we are paying $4, because the value has reduced to 4 utils. Now when we are consuming 3 units here, then we are paying $3 because the value has dropped to 3 units. When you look at this explanation, you can easily see that quantity demanded, determines what we are paying for the product. That is, it determines the price. That is why demand is designed this way. In his book, it shows that quantity demanded determines price. That is own belief. And in that case, that is why he says again in his book that the larger the amount of a thing a person has, the less he pays for it. So you can see that the idea of demand curve by Marshall is seen from the angle of marginal utility, and simply it's seen that quantity demanded determines the price to be paid for a particular commodity. So he is seeing it this way. Now, where the problem is now coming from? The problem is coming from the fact that we are using price as determinant with the graph of when quantity demanded is determined. When we are using the graph of when quantity demanded is the independent variable. We are using it to explain the function of when a price determines quantity demanded. That is where all the problems come. So we are saying different things from what the developer of the curve sees, and we are not going aligned with his view. So it would have been better for an economics, when he's computing his data, whereby price is the determinant, to put it this way, whereby price will be on horizontal axis while quantity demanded will be on quantity axis. But when the concern is to check how quantity demanded is determining price, then we can look it from this angle, using quantity demanded on horizontal axis here and price on the vertical axis. So to summarize it now, Marshall has never made a mistake. For plotting or for graph is a demand curve this way, making price to be on a horizontal, making price to be on vertical axis and quantity demanded on horizontal axis. And it's not even a mistake for people like Connaught and Warros, among many others, who have plotted their graph this way. So what should be the concern of this modern economists is to understand, even in our classrooms, to understand that when we are plotting graph, we should consider the function we are plotting. So we should not at all time believing that price is the determinant of quantity demanded. So if you want to focus on the fact that price is determinant of the quantity demanded, we should be using this graph. But when we are looking at Marshallian demand curve that says that quantity demanded determines price, then it is going to be good for us to be using this graph. But using this Marshallian graph, to explain the function that price determines quantity demanded, it is the major problem we are having in our modern day. This is where we are going to be stopping for today, and we wish you a very good day ahead. And also remember to subscribe so that you can get more of our videos. And this particular research is influenced by a friend called Coca. Coca is one of the major brain behind this research. Thank you very much for influencing us. Thank you.